Hello, everyone. It's good to have you join us today. Welcome as you join us again on our conversation on Web TV Focus. I am Yemisi Lanre Ido. Today, we're looking at Nigeria's power sector reform, and it's called the Transformative Electricity Act 2023. Now, this landmark legislation aims to modernize and enhance the efficiency of that industry, the competitiveness in the industry. Now, with a focus on attracting private investments, promoting renewable energy adoption, expanding electricity access to Nigerians, and safeguarding consumer interest. The Act introduces key features, and I'm going to be telling you all about those features now. We have diversifying the power sector, transparent tariff regulations, emphasis on sustainability, consumer protection measures, and strengthened regulatory bodies. Also, we're going to be discussing the implications of the recent devaluation of the Naira on electricity pricing. Just recently, we saw some news that the tariff will be increased by July 1st, and its potential impact on businesses and households. So make sure you do not miss this opportunity to gain insights and engage in a meaningful dialogue on Nigeria's power sector reforms as we begin. Now you can make your opinion count by also joining us at WebTV Nigeria using the hashtag WebTVFocus. So I'm not going to be doing this alone. I've got contributors joining us to proffer solution, if we can, on this matter, what Nigerians can do, what alternatives you can look at. And I'm being joined by Abdul Kudus Isiaka, a senior economist, ProShare. Also joining us is a researcher on renewable energy, Tokumbo Oladejo, as well as Najib Bello, a writer with a wealth of experience on this matter. Is also part of the audience. So we'll be getting your first-hand reaction to this matter and how best we can move forward with all of this. We saw the floating of the Naira recently and how it is affecting the multi-year tariff order as it is. Now, the multi-year tariff order 2022 sets the exchange rate at about 441 Naira to the dollar. But with this latest, we're going to be seeing it adjusted to about 750 Naira to the dollar. So it's a key issue that we should be looking at today. So yes, thank you so much everyone once again for joining us. I am Yemisi Lanre Ido, your pilot on this particular matter. So you could make your opinion count as well as you join us, but kindly ensure that you put your thoughts together and in a minute, let's know what you're trying to say all on this matter today. The electricity tariff increase as well as the Electricity Act 2023. So I'm going to begin with the audience today. We're changing it. Let's see. Let's get the reaction of the audience today. And of course, as I told you, Najib is joining us on this matter. Hi, Najib. Kindly make a request to speak. Unmute yourself so we could hear you.
Okay, I already unmuted myself. Good morning.
Oh. Morning, Najib. So, I always ask for reactions, and it's good to feel the pulse of Nigerians on this matter. The electricity tariff will increase by July 1st. It's all over the news. So what was your initial reaction? We saw the floating of the Naira. When you heard it, did you scream or were you expecting it?
Okay, so there has been some complaints recently by Nigerians that since about the end of last year, it seemed like there was some kind of tariff increase that they did not understand, that was not mentioned, but we were not sure what was happening. But I noticed that I have to recharge almost double. I used to recharge about 20,000 Naira per month. Now I'm recharging about 35,000 Naira per month for almost the same amount of power or the same duration of use of power. So I felt something had happened in terms of tariff increase that they did not announce. But so I was surprised that they were making an announcement on a power tariff increase. Overall, though, I know it's not something you will easily see on my profile, but I participate in the power sector. I own a small power company called Barrick Power. and our focus is renewable energy, solar, wind, mainly. So I have knowledge, fairly vast knowledge of the power sector. The truth is that power is so cheap in Nigeria that people are not encouraged to establish power plants. So you have this new document saying, oh, you go and produce power. You don't need license to generate as little as 1 megawatt. You don't need this. Go on. However, how are we going to enter that market if government is still determining that, oh, you have to price your power at 50 naira per kilowatt hour? When in the global scene, 1 kilowatt hour of electricity costs about 20 cents. And I just did the calculation. 20 cents was equal to, say, maybe 150 naira. So on the average, globally, people are paying 150 naira for just 1 kilowatt of electricity. But in Nigeria, we are about to increase to maybe 50, 60 naira. And people are afraid, people are complaining. The truth is that if we do not deregulate our power sector, government needs this multi-year tariff order has to even leave. We need to, the way we are deregulating the market for petroleum products is the same way we have to deregulate the power sector so that anybody can come and generate power and they will decide between them and their customers how much is reasonable to pay for 24 hours electricity. So in Lagos, I'm in the Lekki area of Lagos, and we have a lot of estates that I communicate with, I do business with. A lot of them are charging for 24 hours electricity, constant, stable electricity. A lot of them are charging between 100 naira and 200 naira. Most of them are on the 200 naira range per kilowatt hour.
Najib, you may not be sounding like the normal audience because I'm sure many people would not want to hear what you're saying, but you're actually speaking the truth. If we have listened to many analysts, if we are listening to many analysts,
To so
go
many
ahead.
people in the power sector that you will not believe it. I've been having discussions in the power sector since about 2007. And the things we've been saying since 2007, 2009, 2013, up till today, when they privatized the power sector, I said it that without deregulation of the power prices, we will not see any significant change. And it's been 10 years or more than 10 years since that deregulation of the power sector, and we've not seen much change. Privatization has been more than 10 years after privatization, but without deregulation, we haven't seen any much change. So we need to be clear of what we are doing. We need to seek alternatives also. Alternative power, gas power plants. We have to use solar, wind, and the rest. Sorry for taking much time, but it's a very complicated matter.
No, it's okay. Yes, it is. It is. And we are going to get to that point actually, where we talk about the renewable energy. And this all encompassed in the Transformative Electricity Act that is out already. But yeah, let me get it. Let me give our audiences a clear picture of what we're looking at with this tariff that would be increased by July 1st. You said, yes, that we'll be looking at a base tariff of about 60 to 50, but some would say it's about 100 naira per kilowatt at the end of the day for band C. That's 12 to about 16 supply hours per day. Band A and band B might be different. That's those that have about 20 hours and above supply of power. So it may be different. So, but let's look at the act and how this act is it actually, would it be deregulating the sector totally? So let me bring in Abdul Kudus here. So there are some talking heads that I've put out here on this act, Abdul Kudus. So the first one is diversifying the power sector, which the act is all about. And it states that states would have the authority to issue licenses for mini grids. It states that private investors can obtain licenses for generation, transmission, system operations, trading. I wonder if they are not doing that already. And individuals can construct I'm particularly interested in that one. Individuals can construct, own, or operate small-scale electricity generation or distribution projects, but not more than 100 kilowatts without needing a license. Abdul Kudus, yes, I've talked about these talking heads here. So with this act and with this diversifying the power, do we say that that sector is totally deregulated?
Well, I think it depends again on what you consider to be regulation. Because if you look at um, some of the points that Najib made, pricing constitutes a very important feature of any market. And so if pricing is still centrally determined, it's arguable whether we do have deregulation. But I think that the recent Electricity Act it is quite commendable. We've been talking a lot about the opportunities that there are for states to take advantage of the um, underdevelopment in their electricity value chains across the country to attract investment. So what we have been talking about is states as well as the federal government, issuing greenfield licenses. And this, I think, presents an enormous opportunity for them to be able to do so. So what we would have essentially under the new regime or dispensation, if you like, is that we would have a regulatory commission in each state, and we would have market players in each state. So just as you have IKEDC, EKEDC would likely have, IKEDC, EKEDC, and the likes are regulated by the National Electric Regulatory Commission, right? Whereas now you would have state-sanctioned and regulated distribution companies, transmission companies, and power generating companies, which obviously means that we're going to see an improvement in the infrastructure layout within that particular sector. It would likely see, improvement in coverage. We've been talking a lot about the fact that only so many Nigerians, are on the national grid. A lot of them bypass the grid. A lot of them are connected to it by, tapping and the likes. So I think by onboarding all of these new players, we're likely to see greater coverage, competition. Although, and this is where the issue that Najib made a mention of is, it's a little bit tricky because again, the flip side you could expect that the counter argument would be that electricity generally tends to create what you call a natural monopoly, and then there is necessarily a need for the government to step in to regulate pricing, because depending on how developed and sophisticated the infrastructure is likely that if an electricity generating or power generating distribution or transmission company is located within a vicinity, it would tend to dominate in terms of that, what obtains in that particular market. And so I think overall we need to weigh the pros and cons, but what I can see as the major advantage is, well, I see broader coverage, and eventually, we could possibly see prices at a more competitive range. Of course, as you rightly mentioned, we're looking at issues around more transparent regulation. We're looking also looking at issues around renewable energies, which is very interesting, but again, lacks the depth. Looking at it on the face of it, it looks quite interesting, but what exactly are we talking about? And what forms
I was going to say
of
that, yes, I was going to say that it looks. I was going to say that it really looks interesting on the face value, and it's heartwarming when you say that on the broader note, we're going to have a broader power generation and all of that. But at the moment, it looks like it's a double jeopardy for many Nigerians. Prices of fuel are on the rise. Also, now by July 1st, Nigerians are going to be paying more for electricity. So many Nigerians at the moment are looking for a way out. I would say that. Yes, the Act also provides for renewable energy here that we have. Yes, renewable energy, emphasizing renewable energy and sustainability. And it says electricity generation licenses must fulfill renewable energy generation obligations and all of that and all of that. But so I don't keep Mr. Tokunbo Oladejo waiting. Let's hear him on this side. He's a researcher on renewable energy. Let's get your opinion on this, Mr. Oladejo, because I'm sure a lot of us here want to know how to go about it. Maybe I should use my case as a classical example. When I saw that news that tariffs would be increased, I wasn't totally afraid, because for a while now, I've gone off Nigerian power. I've tried to solve the situation in that area. Mr. Oladejo is also somebody who has been working and researching on renewable energy, particularly solar. So let's hear from you, Mr. Oladejo. How do you think Nigerians, businesses, artisans, households can surpass this situation? All right, Najib, let me throw that to you now. Let me throw that to you, Najib. Since you're also in that industry, a lot of people are looking at how easy it's going to be on them. So I'm throwing that question to you now. How do you think it's going to be easy on them? This art seems nice to listen to and hear, but want to know how it works in real life.
All right. For those who want to come into renewable energy, who want to try it out, the first thing some are trying to get into is, I hear a lot of people trying to convert their power generator at home, their petrol generator, into natural gas. They want to use LPG with their cylinders. That's just the beginning of it. That's the edge of it. It's not gas generation of power. It's not really renewable energy like that, but it's a start. Solar. The thing is, for wind, Nigeria does not have the kind of high wind speeds that these Western countries have. The northern countries, I would say, because Asia too has good wind speeds, Europe. So wind technology is not very, apart from some parts of northern Nigeria, Katsina, Sokoto, Plateau, it's not. Then the beach areas of the southern states, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and the rest, most parts of Nigeria cannot maximally utilize wind. So solar is what is the most popular. It's not so difficult to install or maintain, and it's been used for a couple of decades in Nigeria and has proven to be fairly efficient. The problem is the initial cost of installing a decent, reliable solar power system.
So that cost is what we want to. Yes, Najib, we want to hear about that cost. I mean, if you have one bulb in the house, television, fan.
Sorry, I was building up. I wanted to land on the cost. Is the major issue. You will hear that the minimum systems you can put in, maybe 1 kVA system, with this new Naira floating, could be about 750,000. 2 kVA maybe like 1.5 million and all of that. So what some organizations have come in to do, especially the banks, some of the banks, I don't know if I can mention one particular, but let me wait till you give me permission. But some of the banks are offering options where you can choose the solar power system you want, and they would give it to you at a rate that you can be paying almost what you will be paying with the new monthly tariff rates. You could be paying as little as 50,000 naira per month, or as much as 200,000 naira per month for your solar power system. So they kind of take the initial bulk cost away from you, then you pay to them at installmental rates with some interest on it. So that's one of the ways I think people can just get off the grid, avoid the unstable power, avoid the up NEPA situation with high costs, then find something reliable, something renewable you can use at a rate that is not so different from what you're already paying. So installmental payment for solar power system using our banks that are tapping into such products. That's what I can offer for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's an interesting information you've given, paying in installment to be able to put up a solar system in your home. But let me quickly ask you, for 1 kVA, you have said is about 750,000 naira. So how many appliances can go on that?
For a 1 kVA system, I'll use an example of a little household I know. Funny enough, then before you even think of renewable energy, you have to change some of your electronics. You cannot be using 1980, 1990 fridges on your solar power system. So for a 1 kVA system, there is a fridge I advise people to buy. It's a 470-liter fridge. It's a fairly big fridge. Consumes only 100 watts. You can have that. You can have your 43-inch television. You can have virtually all the lights if you are using low energy consuming bulbs. You can have your fan. You cannot have your air conditioner. You cannot have your pressing iron. You can't have your water heater or any other your pressing iron. You can't have anything that goes beyond 300 watts on it. So with a 1 kVA power system, you should be looking at 800 watts totally. So you look at the back of your TV and some of your electronics, you will see where the wattage is written. So if you have a low power consuming fridge like the 100 watts I just said, which is a big fridge with a freezer, you have that's 100 watts. Your television, 43-inch television, is about 100 watts also. Your fan is like 50 watts. All the bulbs in your house should be a total of 100 watts. So you can have some other things. You can't have your deep freezer. You can't have your air conditioners for now. And that's just that. You can have the basic things. You can charge your phones, charge your laptop. It's fairly decent. A 1 kVA system is fairly decent. And I know someone I've installed for who has been using since the end of 2021, and they have not had issues.
Thank you so much for that information. I'm sure a lot of our audiences would want to hear that. Just find a way around it and how to substitute this energy for a better living for many Nigerians. So I'm told Mr. Oladejo Tokunbo is here. So I was asking him earlier about renewable energy, and I know that you're also focused on solar energy, and you've done researches on it. So let's get your thoughts on this. Mr. Tokunbo, you've done a wide research, and I was particularly picked about what somebody said about how you can derive solar with something. So please shed some light with us on that, how you can derive solar on what you have researched on.
Okay, good morning. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, when we talk of renewable energy, we need to get it straight. Renewable energy means something you can reproduce that is somehow inexhaustible. And nature has given us solar, which is the sun, to actually tap from. It's inexhaustible. So going straight, we know that energy is one of the cardinal importance in life, even for technology, for domestic use and technology. Solar panel has gone wild, and we have various of them. Right now, renewable and sustainable energy is focusing on what we call natural dye solar system, solar cell, what we call DSSC. You see, that is what is in vogue now, developing. I want to tell you now that apart from this grid and what have you, or the solar panel using all this silicon what have you, it has gone to a state whereby you can use extract from either leaves, roots, bark, fruit, flower, even to generate electricity. Though these are not really gone commercial, but that is what we are actually doing now. That you can extract dyes from leaves, from flowers, from roots to actually generate electricity. And the one that we are producing from this one now, we can start by using it for a kind of small cell battery, say to power our phone, to power our wall clock, to power our laptop, and what have you. So that is the state we are now. So the idea is to make it industrialized. This one is less costly.
About how much?
Costly compared to all this.
About how much is it?
And
About how much? You said it's less costly.
yeah, it depends. It depends. Right now, it's on the research level, which has not really gone commercial. But essentially, from I've listened to what people have been saying. In order to actually cushion the effect of this electricity in Nigeria, we have three cardinal points of it. We have what we call: are we going to installation, fabrication, and a kind of assembly? You see, the one we have not really done is the fabrication, which is going to help a lot. And to fabricate is to have a company whereby you produce it yourself here. What is involved right now is to assemble and to install for people. All these things are being imported, but we have not really gotten to whereby we fabricate our own solar cell. And until we get to that stage, we'll be able to have electricity even at the cheaper rate, even than the one we're having now. So the research now is on using natural plants even to generate electricity. And that is what we are doing right now. So that instead of hydro, whatever, wind and what have you, we can still tap this thing. It's just the process of photosynthesis. If you are biologically oriented, just tap this thing from the sun and we convert it to electricity.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Tokunbo. Thank you so much, Mr. Oladejo. You talked about using natural plants to generate electricity. Now we're going to be looking at the rural electrification. I'm also particular about that. Abdul Kudus, I'm coming to you now on that matter. You heard what is shared with us. It's still in the research stage, but using natural plants. And we have more of that in the rural areas. So, and the government is saying that this act is also aiming to bridge the electricity gap in remote and marginalized communities. How does it intend to do that? I mean, we've talked about the monies and how people can cut down, scale down on the electricity, the power, what they use in their homes. But these are the marginal people in the rural areas. How best can electricity be generated to that segment of the country?
Okay. I think the point Saladejo made is quite interesting. I believe that that, as well as some of the solar-based energy drive that we've seen the past governments undertake, I think would likely or could possibly result in an improvement in electricity generated and supplied to rural areas. But I think what is most important is proper data, right? So I think fundamentally we do have a data problem. When we say rural areas, first of all, what do we define as rural areas? Are we talking also about slums that are not captured, slums within cities, or slums around urban areas? So I think it's important for us to be very, very clear about that. I think that, I mean, by adopting solar and some of these very new, interesting, I can say I never really heard of NDSS that Mr. Oladejo talked about, but it sounds quite interesting. Although, again, we must appreciate the fact that it's still at the research stage; it's not being commercialized, and to that extent, practicality in the face of rising prices at this point in time is a different conversation altogether. So I think for now we may still be talking about some of the other alternatives, namely CNG. Particularly CNG as gas prices have to decline. Also because Nigeria does have a large supply of gas, I think it's easier and it's much more practicable at this point in time to make such a recommendation. The point that Najib made about gas not being particularly renewable is also valid, but Nigeria considers gas as its own transition fuel. It means that given our large gas proven reserves, I think we still can take advantage of that at this point in time. We are, energy poor, more or less, and it's not because we do not have ample and large supplies of natural resources in that regard. It's just because we've been unable to domesticate our gas value chain. So I think that for me stands out as a major alternative to generate power and supply to rural as well as urban areas, because it is an existential problem, if you understand. The removal of petrol subsidy, removal of the restrictions, or if you like, liberalization of the FX market, all of those have almost direct impact on electricity and transportation. And both of them would really be affected, or can be affected, by how we generate power. For example, if we're able to domesticate our gas value chain and improve the distribution of CNG domestically, we can see a reduction in both the cost of generating electricity as well as the cost of transportation in and around the country. LPG, which is our major cooking gas, cooking oil, is quite similar to the CNG, except that, of course, it's more propane based, and it's a lot more dense compared to CNG. But overall, I think we need to look a lot into gas and our gas infrastructure, considering not just the distribution around the country, but also the safety thereof. If you've had a close shave or a scare, as I have with gas, especially CNG, you'd understand that I think it's important. It's also a conversation we should be having, the issue of safety. We do know that, in the main, gas, especially CNG, is carried around the country in some of these tanks, road tanks or tankers. So I think that should be phased out as we are now transiting to the gas era. Right? So I think that basically I would be a lot more in favor of gas, but solar isn't bad. I think some of the numbers from Najib also sound quite interesting. We're looking at 750,000 naira LP with a 1 kVA plant, and that can support 800 watts. That's quite interesting.
Abdul Kudus, it looks like it looked. Yes, Abdul Kudus. Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. But it looked like you let the cat out of the bag, and you were in my thoughts about the safety of gas. Najib mentioned something earlier, and there was a viral video that was out there about, especially when there was that increase in fuel prices, where a guy was showing that he could power his generator with gas. And I was thinking, how safe is that? Yes, Nigeria has gas in abundance, and we're yet to fully tap into the potential of what it will do for us when it comes to generating power. So, Najib, let me come back to you. And I'm sure I remember you also mentioned that. How safe is that? If you saw that video, how safe is it for Nigerians? And how viable is it?
So I've been dealing in gas for a while. I deal in gas for domestic use. That's for cooking gas. And for about 3 years now, I have been promoting the use of composite cylinders. That's cylinders that are not made of metal, because those ones are safer, and in case of fire or anything else, they don't explode. They don't present so much harm. So when I saw these experiments with conversion of a regular petrol generator to a gas generator, even though it's something that would enlarge my market, I told people to be cautious. I personally, I've used a generator that was factory fitted to either use petrol or gas. And that is what I will advise people who want to try out the gas alternative. It is cheaper. We've seen and we've carried out experiments which showed that gas is about 1.5 times, almost 2 times cheaper than using petrol. So it's cheaper, but please, going to buy that carburetor in the market and giving your roadside generator mechanic to install for you, the same mechanic that keeps making your generator go bad every 2 weeks, you want to trust him to install a gas carburetor. I'm very worried about that. So what I would advise people to do is buy factory fitted. If you are going to buy a power generator, a standby generator, go and look for the ones that have that are already fitted to use gas alternatively to petrol. I would not advise people to start in buying those 25,000, 20,000 naira carburetors from the market and telling their roadside mechanics to fix it. Then secondly, the kind of cylinder you use also matters, because I've seen different instances. We have all heard of different instances where petrol generators exploded and harmed people or killed people. Now, if for any reason there is a fire or anything around your generator and you are using gas, if you are using a metal cylinder, it's almost as if you have a bomb in there with sharpnels, because the metal parts just explode very violently and could kill anybody around. So go for composite cylinders and make sure you buy gas generators as produced from a factory, from a company, not someone coming to your house to retrofit a carburetor that will use gas for you. For now, I don't advise people to retrofit their systems to use gas. So that's the danger I just felt. But in terms of pricing, gas is a bit cheaper. It's not just a bit, almost, it's almost half the price of petrol if you are using it to power. But then it's not as powerful. Your generator may not be able to carry as much things as it would carry if it were running on petrol. So that's what I have to say about the new rave of, oh, let's use gas to power our houses. And then again, gas prices fluctuate. As we start heading back into winter from September, October, gas prices may rise globally. So what you are enjoying now may not be there anymore. So let's consider everything before we jump into it. Thank you.
You know, Nigerians are geniuses, and we tend to come up with solutions at any time. I mean, you would never, as they say, you would never find us napping in any way. But thank you so much for that information, and I'm sure a lot of people are listening, audiences are listening. From what you said, and I got, if you intend to do that, you need a factory-fitted carburetor. You need composite cylinders and also gas generators from a factory. Am I right, Najib?
Yes. So the generators that come straight from the companies are already fitted with the gas carburetor. Now, what most people are trying to do now is to just buy the carburetor from a dealer somewhere, just one little part, fix it to their generators. But I don't think the mechanics around have the expertise to safely do that. That's my concern. So once you buy a generator that is from the factory, that is from the company, fitted to use either petrol or gas or even purely gas, and you get a composite cylinder, you are good to go. And you enjoy it for the next couple of months, cheaper gas, cleaner air, and everything.
Thank you so much for that information. We all heard that. Please, let's be very careful. Biko, I would use that word. Let's be very careful so that we do not run out because we just want to reduce the monies that we have. But if you're just joining us, don't forget you could also join in the conversation. This is Web TV Focus, and we're talking about Nigeria Power Sector Reform, the Transformative Electricity Act 2023, as well as the implications of the recent devaluation of the Naira on electricity pricing and the increment which will take effect from July 1st. Please kindly request to speak if you've got anything to say, as well as you could also drop your comments in the comment section so we could read them aloud for everyone to hear. I've been speaking with Abdul Kudus Isiaka, Senior Economist, Pro-Share, Tokunbo Oladejo, renewable energy researcher, as well as Najib Bello, a writer with a wealth of experience when it comes to power matters in Nigeria. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So let's continue this conversation, and we're getting the heat of it. Abdul Najib has been able to tell us what we could do when it comes to renewable energy, which areas we could go to and apply all of this. And he's also told us the safety when it comes to gas. Using gas to power our appliances in our homes and in our businesses. So yeah, Mr. Oladejo, let's talk about this research. When is it likely that this research will come into that stage where it could be used?
Well, the research is ongoing. And even apart from that, before now we have been using paint, but we discovered that one is even expensive. But the one we can do in the immediate, we can even
Did you
use,
say paint?
say
Did you
again?
say paint? Did you say
Yes, paint.
paint?
Paint, yes.
Okay.
Using paint, you can paint your house and do a kind of connection that that can even be converted to electricity. So that also is going on. Yeah, because the synthetic of that one is more complex compared to the natural dye sensitized I talked about the other time. But there's another one. We can use our mirror or convex or lenses even to generate a thermal energy to boil. You see, we can, just like the disc we have for this DSTV, what have you, you can decorate it with some mirrors. Then you expose it to sun. Then we have what we call a focal point. When you get that target, then you can direct it to any of your cooking materials to cook for you. So that is even cheaper and which everybody can do, which does not require much processes. So these are the use of sunlight when we talk about the solar panel, solar energy. And with that, you see, very cheap, like what Mr. Najim just said. We talk about the safety now, gas and what have you. They are, yeah, to some extent, we cannot say they are renewable because after some time, it can get exhausted, the gas and the petrol or petroleum products. The sun is there anytime, any day, you see, which is quite cheaper and safe. So for that panel, using a kind of a mirror or lens, in fact, you can perform this experiment. If you have a lens, convex lens, just expose it to sun, place outside, put a carbon underneath, it will burn off after some time. And you get that focus because you have directed all that power from the sun to that place. So that is the idea we use in this thermal energy to cook our domestic something. So we can start from there. My emphasis is that fine, all this one they have mentioned, they are for industrial use, fine, and they are costly. But we are looking towards a way, a kind of energy that is very cheap and safe. And that is what the research is on now. So that one, it may take a time. But in the interim, we can adopt all those things that they have said in order to actually reach where we are going. But essentially, we need to get a factory where we can fabricate our own. And it is incumbent on the government now to look at that area to actually look for sponsor or invest in that area so that we'll be self-dependent
Okay.
when it comes to electricity generation.
I'm going to be trying one of these experiments that you have talked about. Maybe when I leave here, I'm going to be trying it, and I hope I'm safe. All right. Thank you. But I wanted to ask, yes, and I think you said something about that. How are you getting funding? At what stage is that research? What is the scale? Is the government involved? I mean, we really want to know because you've told us so many interesting ways of generating power here. So what is the scale at which that research is at the moment? Is the government involved or do you have any funding agency at the moment?
As a matter of fact, it's self-sponsored. Nobody is involved. It's part of my research at the PhD level in Abeokuta there, and a lot of conferences. So we are trying to push and see whether we can get grants. As a matter of fact, when this thing was being defended, somebody asked me, can I mass produce it? That they're trying to see whether they can get some grants. So these are the end thing that we can actually go into. We have people in that area too. We can collaborate and we can establish a kind of maybe small place to start off. Even if you are not going to make a very high voltage for now, high power, then we can produce something like small batteries that can power our laptop, our phone, and all these small things, which can even be marketable. And we supplement the one we are even importing into this country. So we need to start somewhere. I hope the government probably listening and they can invest in this area.
All right, thank you so much. We're hoping as well, and we are rooting for you there. Okay, so Najib has something to say. Najib, it looks like you want to react to Mr. Tokumboladejo's statement.
I just wanted to let him know, or to let everyone know, that for manufacture, I just got information that there's Oxano Solar. Oxano Solar, they are launching their factory. In fact, I just chatted with the CEO right while we were doing this, having this space, and he said by September they are commissioning their plant, and they got funding from some local banks and support from government. One of the organizations that funded them, which I would say is actually funding solar expansion in Nigeria, is Sterling Bank. So he too, that is trying to do something innovative, especially in the battery area, because Oxano Solar is doing more of panels, manufacture of panels now. Their factory is already set up, but they are launching in September. So I wanted to let him know that there is already manufacture, and there was a plant supposed to be in Borno State. It was mentioned years ago. However, I've not been able to know how much they've deployed in the market or what capacity they are producing right now. I can't tell. But what I know is that Oxano, they have a factory ready, and they are starting before the end of this year, manufacturing solar
All right.
panels.
Thank you so much for that information. And I'm sure that Mr. Oladejo has also heard you there. Thank you so much for that information. All right, Abdul Kudus, let's come back to tariff regulations and transparency. We tried reaching out to the NERC to see how consumers will be protected in this matter. Yes, it says that it introduces a transparent tariff setting process based on efficient cost structures. Tariff methodologies must be published, ensuring transparency and enabling stakeholders to understand the basis of tariff calculation. So in all of this, I don't know, in your expertise, what measures are in place, or what measures should be in place to protect consumer rights, ensuring fair pricing?
All right. So I think before now, what obtained is, up to now, actually, we still have the multi-year tariff order, with which the NERC sets prices. And it's supposed to reflect a number of fundamental macroeconomic variables like the exchange rate, as well as the inflation rate. And that perhaps explains why, from time to time, they adjust this rate upward. It's more likely than otherwise that going forward we will see more upward adjustments, given the fact that our outlook for inflation rates, of course, benchmarked by the likely continuous devaluation of the naira, is it will continue to rise. So I think the only requirement, to ensure transparency, basically, is to ensure that publication is proper communication. A situation where they just unilaterally raise these rates and tariffs without communicating is disruptive. I think there should actually be some form of telegraphic rate hikes or tariff hikes. It should be properly communicated ahead of time so that households and businesses can plan. But again, I think all of this says to me is that we should begin to look at alternatives. If we cannot, guarantee a reduction in tariffs due to competition, then we should be looking at perhaps porting out, if you like, of the national grid, looking at alternatives. And some of the interesting things we've talked about today offer alternatives and options for the average household. But I think in terms of transparency, it's simply a case of publishing it and making it as transparent as it should be.
But what do you think this means for the discos and the gencos at the moment?
Okay, so what we have currently is there's a drive, right, towards metering, and there's a drive to ensure that electricity theft is reduced. And perhaps if we have greater transparency in that regard, maybe there will be a disincentive for theft. Of course, a number of other factors, including purchasing power, account for large amounts of electricity theft and the bypassing of, the um, um, electricity grid, right? And I think a situation where there is tariff regulation, proper transparency, I think we should see a lot less in terms of electricity theft. I think also we should be thinking about a situation where our electricity meters are personalized, right? And we're looking at a situation where it could be um, such similar to what we have in the communication sector, where your SIM is personalized and that allows for you to be able to connect to very many alternatives. So if you like, you can port from MTN to Airtel to Glo to Etisalat. If you're able to also port in terms of your distribution company, that forces some amount of competition in that regard. You know, we're able to see a reduction in tariff at some point down. So I think in terms of the implications for distribution companies, of course, maybe we can extend the conversation to what the challenge we've been seeing at the end of distribution companies. There's been liquidity challenge along the electricity value chain accounted for largely by the lack of capacity by the case of distribution companies. And that, of course, is relatable or can be attributed to what you could consider to be a poor bidding and privatization process that was conducted in 2013. And so that we're not crying over spilled milk, I think there is a need for them to also upgrade in terms of their financial muscle, should be able to drive this metering program without making recourse to the CBN. The CBN has two very large scale electricity metering programs. But even then, we still see that only a fraction of the millions of users across the country are metered. So I think that is something that distribution companies themselves should be able to, champion. And since we're seeing a lot more transparent and market reflective rates now, maybe they should be also, motivated to, go ahead with the metering. And also, they've been complaining about demand on the end of from the consumers. So again, maybe we'll see a situation where they're encouraged by pricing, to invest more in the business, take off more from transmission companies, and just generally be a lot more effective in that as a link along the value chain.
Yes, a fraction of Nigerians are metered, just a fraction, and I could imagine what it would mean for the postpaid estimated billing system. Those that are still under that, of course, we're going to see an increment that will be so high, and I wonder how they will be able to I wonder what it means for them, really, those under the postpaid billing system. So yes, you talked about what happened in the telecommunications sector and how that sector was able to compete favorably, healthily. Do you think we could see that with this act at the end of the day, if it is actionable, do you think we could see that competitiveness in the power sector as well?
Well, as I said in my initial remarks, it depends again on the infrastructural layout. So if we're able to see a situation where geographical locations don't constitute some inhibitions, such that you are not necessarily constrained to patronizing IKEDC just because you live in that environment, I think we could see a lot more vibrant competition in the distribution end or link of the value chain, which should also bring prices to a lot more possibly I don't want to be too presumptive, possibly to a lot more bearable rate.
Well, we hope that. We hope to see that in the power sector in Nigeria. Thank you so much, Abdul Kudus. Let me come back to you, Najib. You said you've been speaking with some people where you are there on the island about this increment and all of that. When we started this conversation, are they okay with this increment? Do you think it's something that they are in agreement with?
So wherever in Nigeria, it's just like the way we are introducing deregulated pricing for petroleum products, by the way, which is not fully deregulated yet because they are being told to sell 488 or 500 or something. By the time there is full deregulation, someone can decide to sell their petrol if it's premium for 1,000 naira per liter. Another person can decide, okay, since mine is not so top quality, I'll sell for 350 or thereabout. And as the deregulation has happened, there is revolt, even among the people who can easily afford 500 naira per liter for petrol. So I remember when Ikeja Electric went to Magodo and they did that 24 hours electricity thing where they supplied the entire Magodo GRA with 24 hours electricity, and the bill was insane. It was, people were going from paying about maybe 40, 50 naira per kilowatt hour to paying more than 200, 250. And a lot of people revolted, they fought, they even went to court to say they didn't want to be covered under that system. But when you sit them down and you calculate the costs, there was a time I decided in my house I was going to run my generator every time there was no power. So I was going to make sure I had 24 hours electricity. Once Eco Disco takes off the light, I put on my generator. Once they bring the light, I put off my generator. That month, I spent about 200,000 naira on petrol. We're not talking about the cost of the generator, cost of engine oil, cost of repairs and servicing. So when people in Ikoyi, in fact, when diesel went to 800 naira, they experienced it, they revolted. At the end of the day, they realized, it's 24 hours electricity, we need it, is more useful to us than saving 50,000, 100,000 naira. Lekki, Ikoyi, VI, the places I know that I work with estate owners, estate managers, already they are doing close to 200 naira per kilowatt hour. So whatever the tariff changes to, as long as it's not above 200 naira, if there is going to be more electricity supply from the public power system, they are going to be happy with it. They are going to go with it. But people will revolt naturally. No matter where you go, people will revolt. People in Eco Atlantic will shout, why? But at the end of the day, if you give them, if there are businesses coming in to supply electricity, 24 hours electricity at 200 naira per kilowatt hour, they will enjoy it, they'll pay for it. And at the end of the day, they won't have issues. But in the beginning, change always has a way of bringing this kind of strife and different opinions. But eventually, when we begin to understand what 24 hours electricity means, we will pay for it and we'll enjoy it.
Sometimes when we even see 18 hours, well, a lot of Nigerians are already shouting, what's happening? I hope the power sector is fine and all of that, So yes, it's the initial pain. It's the initial pain. And of course, it's the level of mistrust in the system, which has eaten deep into the system, mistrust in the government. Because of course, if you're paying for this and you're seeing what you're paid for, you wouldn't mind, even if there's an increment and there's a tenable reason.
Yes. So what we've always said, what we've always advised government to do is follow some of the models that worked perfectly for you. When there was Molwe in Lagos and the government introduced BRT, people were used to Molwe, very cheap and easy to access. The BRTs were few and they were kind of more expensive, but they were finer. They had ACs, there was no rushing for bus, everybody was queuing. And some people started gravitating towards the BRT, and eventually the Molwe phased itself out.
Gradually,
Exactly. If you apply that and say, you know what, my own suggestion will be all the hybrid areas, the estates in VI, Lekki, Ikoyi, give them a year or two to gradually get off the national grid. We are producing we are producing and distributing about 5,000 megawatts. I don't want to cause arguments. Some people will say it's 8,000. Some people will say it's 3,000. An average of 5,000 megawatts. For a 200 million people population, we need 200,000 megawatts on the average. We may need more if we're going to be manufacturing a lot. So let's say we need 200,000. We are having 5,000. That is, we are producing about 3% or thereabout of what we need.
It's rather low.
yeah, let the top 3%, let them be the ones that would be able to say, okay, we are going to pay premium if they want to remain on the grid. If people in Ikoyi say they want to remain on the grid, then they should be paying like 300 naira per kilowatt hour, because it is premium power that they are getting. But if they choose to go off the grid, then let them go and have their own power system running their estates, paying 200 naira, 300 naira. If they are enjoying it, I'm telling you that Aja people will start saying, why are these people having 24 hours electricity? Is it because they can pay? Okay, we too, we want to pay.
All
You know, that's how it will go. Not just saying everybody,
right,
we've done.
Najib.
All right.
Yes. I hope they wouldn't come. I hope they wouldn't come for you, but it's okay. A lot of people on the mainland also wanted what was happening in Magodo.
These are things I've been saying since 2009.
We are running out of time, Najib. Thank you so much. Let me just hear. Let me just hear from the orders. Mr. Tokumbo Oladejo, your last word. If you could do it in just 2 seconds. Let's hear your last word on this before we talk to Abdul Kudus also, so we could wrap up on the conversation.
All have been said, and we actually appreciate that, at least for this awareness. And now that we should move along with the global trend. And I want to employ the government, just like somebody just mentioned, that somebody else, I want company has already taken it up. So energy is life itself. Without it, we hardly can do anything. Life becomes
All right,
unbearable.
thank you.
It's very
Yes, without power.
yes, without power, nothing can be done. So we should give it priority. And let
We
there
should
be
give it priority.
and conferences, so that for this awareness, how to make things for ourselves. We go to China, Japan, these things have been done from secondary school. You couple things together,
All
secondary
right,
schools.
thank you
But
so
here,
much.
even the
Thank you.
PhD cannot even proud of producing one simple solar cell.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oladejo. Your last word, Abdul Kudus, before we wrap up. All right, we have to round up. My producers are telling me that I should round up. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making it a very interesting conversation. And we were able to draw out so many things that Nigerians can, so many alternatives that Nigerians could look at when it comes to power generation, just as the increments will be enforced by July 1st. Thank you so much, Mr. Tokumbo Oladejo, renewable energy researcher. Najib Bello, thank you. Abdul Kudus Isiaka, we also say thank you to you for making it an interesting conversation all the way. It was very, very insightful. We appreciate your time on Web TV Focus. Join us same time next week. I am Yemisi Lanre Ido.